shaped. Yes. So Cindy, so just make sure that as soon as we are done with our lesson, you remind me to send you all that we have done today via inbox. So this lesson is being recorded. As soon as we're done, I'll make sure to send it to you, but just make sure to remind me. So 3 of these things is exactly what I want to be talking about in today's lesson. So just make sure that in case if I'm saying something of which you don't understand, just stop me and ask me a question. Then I'll re-explain until we are on the same page. So let's see. The word linear, obviously we know that in terms of an equation, or in terms of a function, a linear is just a straight line. So that word linear, it also refers to something being straight. And then quadratic, you know, a quadratic can be that shape, and again, it can be that shape. So on an equation or on a math problem, I'm going to show you the difference between the two. Let's say, for example, you are given 2x, let's say, plus 4, and this is equals to a 1. So, Cindy, this is a math problem. So before you can even solve for the unknown, you need to ask yourself this question: what type of a problem is this? So it's either it's a linear problem or it's a quadratic problem. How do you know if it's a linear problem or a quadratic problem? You look at the letter. So you know, Cindy, a letter can be anything A up to Z. It doesn't matter whether it's small letters as A up to Z. So which letter do you see there, Cindy?
Sir, please repeat your question.
So which letter are you seeing there on that equation?
Sir, please repeat your question.
So the letter on that equation, which letter do you see?
X.
Yeah, so that means in this problem, I've used letter X. So can you see letter X is to the power invisible 1. So for the fact that the letter which is being used there is to the power invisible 1, it makes it a linear equation. So why am I mentioning the word equation? Every time when you see an equal sign, we call that type of a problem an equation. If it doesn't have an equal sign, for example, let's say is 3y plus 7, maybe minus 4, let's say p. Can you see here, there's no equal sign. It's not there. So this thing, we call it an expression. It's not an equation. So I'm going to go deep into explaining the difference between an equation and an expression. But for now, I just want to make you aware of the difference between a linear and a quadratic. What type of linear and quadratic? We're talking about equation. What is an equation? An equation is a math problem that has an equal sign. So let's say you're given 3p minus p, all of this is equals to 7. So first thing first, Cindy, so this is an equation. Why am I saying it's an equation? It's because of that equal sign over there. And again, is it a linear, is it a quadratic equation? Because I see the letter being used is to the power invisible 1, power invisible 1. Then it makes it a linear equation. What does it mean if it's a linear equation? It means in the end, your final answer, you are just going to have one value of the unknown. What is the unknown? The unknown in this case is p. So for example, if we had to solve this math problem, you're going to have 3p minus p, which is what? Is 2p being equals to 7. So because you want to solve for p is the unknown, so that means you divide by 2 so that it cancels. You remain with p on the left, and whatever that you do on the left, you do on the right. So that means p is equal to 7/2. So can you see, if it's a linear equation, it means you only have one unknown, or you only have one final answer being the unknown. So that means, Cindy, so for any math problem, examiner can use any letter from A all the way up to Z. So they can use X, they can use letter P, they can use letter, what is it, S. It could be 4S for Cindy, so minus 3, maybe another letter, they say K, and this is equals to, let's say, D. So when you're given a math problem similar to this one, ask yourself this question: what type of a problem is this? Is it a linear or is it a quadratic? Because you notice the letters are actually to the exponent invisible 1. So that means it makes it a linear type of a problem. So is it an equation? Then ask yourself, is there an equation, an equal sign? If the answer is yes, then it means this is what we call a linear equation. So, spoken much about linear equations, but now let's quickly try to talk about an inequality. So that means it's either you have a linear equation or a linear inequality. So an inequality is very easy to notice. I'm just going to show you quickly. So an inequality is that type of a problem that has either the sign of less than or less than is equals to, or greater than or greater than or is equals to. Let's say, for example, use the same equation there. So we have, let's say 2, but let me say b. 2b, let me say minus 4, not even it's equals to, but I have to use one of those signs over there. So let me say it's less than 7. So before you can solve or perform any calculations, ask yourself this question: what type of a problem is this? So that means in mathematics, Cindy, so we are always given problems. So the problems that you are given, you need to be able to identify the type of problems before you can solve. So you cannot solve if you don't know or understand the problem that you're dealing with. So in this case, you are given 2b minus 4 is less than 7. So ask yourself this question: what type of a problem is this? This is an answer to the question. This is a linear. So is it a linear equation or is it a linear inequality? So because I see I have an inequality sign there, that means this is a linear inequality. What makes it to be inequality is because the letter that was used as part of this maths problem, it's actually to the power invisible 1. So that's all that I wanted to say, Cindy, with regards to a linear equation and a linear inequality. So it doesn't matter if they said 1 is less or greater than, let's say, 7p minus n. Just ask yourself this question: what type of a problem is this? Is it a linear? Yes, it's a linear. Why? Because the letter used in the problem is to the power invisible 1. And again, is it an equation or an inequality? So because you notice there's an inequality sign over there, that means this is a linear inequality. I haven't showed you how to solve this type of problems, but I'm only training you on how you notice the type of a problem that you are dealing with. On our next lesson, that's when I'm going to show you exactly how do you solve this type of problems. But up to what we have done, do you have a question regarding a linear inequality, or does it make sense before I move to quadratic?
It makes sense. I understand.
Okay, 100%. So quickly, let's move to number 2. So number 2, for example, let's say you are given x squared is equals to 4. And again, you might be given, let's say, not always x. Remember, Sindiswa, an unknown is just any letter from A up to Z. I'm telling you, if examiner for a 2022, whoever will be setting the question paper, if their name is Alfred, let's say his name is Alfred, he can still say A to the exponent 2 minus, let's say, 16, and this is equals to let's say 4. So can you see, it doesn't really matter in terms of what letter is being used, as long as it's any letter from A, B, C, D, all the way up to Z. So you just know that letters in maths, they actually represent an unknown. So that means when you solve, you want to actually know the exact value of the unknown, which can be represented by letter A or anything up to Z. So that means you need to convert it from an unknown to being a number. Okay, you will explain all of that as we go deeper, Cindy. So for now, just be aware that in maths, it's only 2 things. Let me say it's actually 3 things. What are those? Is the sign, number 1. Number 2 is the number. And then number 3 is the letter. So when we talk about the sign, we talk about plus, minus, divided by, multiplication, maybe square root, even this equal sign. It's a sign. And again, even those inequality sign, less than, greater than, less than or equals to, greater than, all of these are mathematical signs that we use. A number is just a number, a negative number, -1, -1,000, -10, negative whatever, 0, +1, 3, 5, million, whatever. Those are the numbers in this one. The letters, we only know letters can be A up to Z. We don't know anything other than letter being A up to Z. So can you see, any mathematical problem is made of these 3 things. You just need to be able to interpret them, which is what I want to train you on, how to interpret math problems. So can you see, every term has got a sign. Remember, a term is separated by a sign of a plus or a minus. So that means this is one term. Can you see in between we have minus? This is one term. This is one term. So on the left side, we have 2 terms. On the right side, we have 1 term. What is the sign of the first term? If it's not negative, then automatically it's positive. The sign for this one, it's minus. The sign for that one is invisible, positive over there. Unless if they write negative, then we know it's a negative sign. But now, remember, what I want to explain to you in this one is that we have what we call a mathematical problem. What type of a mathematical problem is this? What type of a mathematical problem is that? So, this is a quadratic. What makes it a quadratic is because of the exponent of power 2. So anything that has got a letter to the power of 2, we call it a quadratic problem. So here comes a question. Is it an equation or is it an inequality? So ask yourself this question. What sign are we having there? So because we have an equal sign, that means this is a quadratic equation. So how do we deal with quadratic equation? We know very well that this power of 2, it tells you that your unknowns are going to be 2 values. So can you see, in this case, the unknown is letter A. So that means your final answer is going to be A is equals to something, or A is equals to something. Why are you having 2 values of the unknown? It's because of that power of squared. So most importantly, if, for example, you are given, let's say, P squared minus P plus 7 is equals to Z, ask yourself this question. Is this a math problem? Yes. Why am I saying it's a math problem? Because it's made of a sign, a number, and a letter. Okay, now that we agree on that one, what type of a problem is this? Is it a linear problem? Is it a quadratic problem? Check the unknown being the letter. Can you see? You have one letter being to the power of 2. For that reason, even though this one is to the power of invisible 1, but because of this letter is to the power 2, it makes the whole of it a quadratic. So is it a quadratic inequality or a quadratic equation? Let's see what sign was used there. It's an equal sign. So that makes it a quadratic inequality. So how do we deal with quadratic problem? Always you want to write it in the standard form of a x squared plus b x plus c and equate it to 0. So always when you have a quadratic type of problem, you want to write it in that format such that you can factorize and find the two values of the unknown. So that means this one, Sindiswa, you can write it in the standard form. Let me quickly show you. Okay, I'll just show you down there in terms of how you write it. So can you see, you just want to have the first term being something to the power of 2. So that means you already have x squared. So can you see, this one, it doesn't have a letter and what is it? An x. So it's more like it's plus 0x. And then you transpose that one or you move it to the other side. Remember, it changes the sign. It becomes -4. This is equals to 0. So can you see? You've written it in that standard form, but because we do not have that anything times 0, it's actually 0. That is why, in short, this thing is actually the same as x minus 4, it's equals to 0. You can therefore from here factorize and find two values of the unknown being x over there. So can you see this one? Cindy, so you do the same also if you want to write it in the standard form. So that means you have a to the x point squared, you have -16, you transpose that, it changes the sign, you want to equate it to 0. So this is the summary, Cindy. So always when you are given a quadratic problem, you just want to write it in the standard form. What does the standard form mean? It means move everything from the right to the left such that on the right you only remain with 0. So here you have a squared -16 minus 4. This is -20. This is equals to 0. You can therefore factorize and have two values of the unknown. So I'm not sure, am I losing you or are we on the same page up to this point?
We are on the same page, sir.
So you haven't got any questions. I'm not losing you, isn't it?
No, not now, sir. I'll ask when I have questions.
Okay, 100%. So now let's try to proceed. So now let's see. What is an inequality? Remember, Cindy, so the moment you see this sign, this sign, you know this is an inequality problem. So that means we can still have a quadratic inequality. I've explained a quadratic equation. So you can still have the same thing. We just change there and make it an inequality sign. We just change there. We can put greater than or it's equals to. We just change there a Cindy, so we can maybe use greater than there. So now, because of that squared, then it makes it a quadratic problem. Is it quadratic equation or quadratic inequality? So because of this sign, it makes it a quadratic inequality. So nothing has changed. Also, you still want to write it as ax squared plus bx plus c, not equals to, but either less than or greater than or less than is equals to greater than is equals to 0. That's how you write it in the standard form. From there, you can easily find your factor using either greater than, less than, greater than is equals to, or less than is equals to 0. Then you have factors there. So this squared on a quadratic equation, it simply tells you that your final answer, you're going to have x is equals to whatever, or x is equals to whatever. Cindy Swa, that's all that I wanted to say with regards to a quadratic equation and a quadratic inequality. So In short, when we have a quadratic, okay, let me say, when we have a linear equation or inequality, and again, when we have a quadratic equation or inequality, we solve for unknown. So, when we are given an expression, then we simplify. That's the difference. We simplify. So I want to quickly explain to you what is an expression. But before I do that, can you confirm for me if all made sense regarding a linear equation, inequality, quadratic equation, and quadratic inequality? Are you happy there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, 100%. So quickly, let me try to explain what is meant by an expression. So this is what I want to talk about. Since number 3, let's see. With regards to 3, so being an expression. So an expression is just a math problem without a, what is it? Without an equal sign or an inequality sign. So let me do this and say the moment you no longer see those, then you're dealing with an expression. For example, you can be given, let's say, 2 to the exponent x plus 4 multiplied by 4 over, let's say, 9x multiplied by 6 to the exponent x plus 1. Here comes the question, Cindy. So ask yourself this question. Is this a math problem? Yes. Why am I saying it's a math problem? Because it is made of, number 1, sign. Number 2, it is made of numbers. Number 3, it is made of letters. This is what makes a math problem, Cindy. So ask yourself this question. What type of a problem is that? So it's either it's a linear, it's either it's a quadratic, it's either it's an expression. So is it a linear equation or inequality? No. Why? Because I don't see any sign of an equal sign or an inequality sign. Is it a quadratic equation or inequality? No. Why? Because I do not see any of these signs. Very, very much important there in this one. So that means it's an expression. Why is it an expression? It's because it doesn't have any of those. So what does it mean if it's an expression? It simply means you need to simplify. What does simplify mean? It means this thing is given as a complicated expression or as a lengthy expression. All that you need to do is to just rewrite this thing in its simplest form. Another example, it's more like you're given, let's say, 8 plus 7 minus 2 multiplied by 3. You are given this in grade 10 as a math problem. You ask yourself the same question in this one. Is it a linear equation inequality, quadratic equation inequality, or an expression? But because already I notice I don't have an equal sign, so it makes it a what is it? A math problem, which is an expression. So what does it mean? It means you need to simplify. How do you simplify? So this is where you follow BODMAS. So you will see what BODMAS says. Let's say BODMAS. So do we see any brackets there? No. Do we see it's normally order? I normally use it as I to say this is mass. So it represents index. Index is that letter to the power something. So it's more like anything to the power makes it an index. So there we don't have anything to the power. But do we have a division sign? That D for division, no division. But do we have multiplication? Yes, is there. So that means on your next step, you're going to say 8 plus 7 minus this times that. What is it? It's 6. Then again, continue. Do you see an addition sign? Yes, there. So that means it's 8 plus that what is it, 10, 15, I think it's 15 minus 16. Then you say, do you see a subtraction sign? There is a subtraction. So what is that? I think this is what? This is possibly 9. So send this one. That means when given an expression, so all you do is to rewrite this lengthy problem in its smaller form. The question is, when you punch all of this, Cindy, so does it give you 9? Let's try. Punch your calculator and let me know if it gives you 9. So let me quickly go and try to get my calculator, but it's fine. I think you'll punch it on your side and let me know.
Yes, sir, it does give me 9.
So do you now understand what is meant by an expression?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay, in that case, in this one, this is all that I wanted to teach you as part of our introduction for our lesson for today. So what I'm going to do now is to quickly try and go through few examples from past exam question papers, and from there we'll be done with our lesson in preparation for our next lesson next weekend. So I'm not sure since I told you that I do lessons during weekdays from Monday to Friday, and I only do one-on-one lessons on weekends. So weekends is actually dedicated to one-on-one lessons. I'm not sure if you were aware of this.
Yes, sir, you told me.
Oh, okay, no, 100%. At least you won't say you are. So, but anyway, up to this point, Cindy. So, are you happy there? Does it make sense what I'm saying, or am I losing you there?
Yes, sir, I do understand.
Okay, let me try find any math problem from previous question papers. Okay, so this is what I'm doing. You might not be able to see. This is a 2020 exam paper, and this is what we are given in this one. Let's see. Question number 1. This is the problem that we're given, 1.1.1. So 1.1, it simply says solve for x. So normally, first question, so you solve for x. So let's see. You are given x squared minus 6x, and this is equals to 0. And this is actually given 2 marks. And again, I'll give you another type of a problem. So on our next lesson, we'll be doing nothing else but solve for x. From there, as soon as we're done, we'll be moving to something else. I just want to expose to you in terms of where okay, this is what I'm going to say, Cindy. So for everyone who's able to correctly solve a math problem, sometimes you might find that someone is able to just solve that, but you don't understand how did they know that this is how you solve it. It's because they already know what I've explained to you. So everything has got the starting point. You don't just start knowing math. You have to grow. You have to go some steps before you can be able to understand mathematics, which is where I had to start in today's lesson. So there's always a starting point. Let's try and have a look at another type of a problem. Okay, let's see. You might also be given x squared plus 10x plus 8, which is equals to 0. And in brackets, they say correct two decimal places. Okay, so let's check another type of a problem that might be given. This is the one minus x close and open x plus 2 close, it's less than 0. 1.1.4, you are given square root of x plus 18, it's equals to x minus 2. Let me check if I can also find something else. Okay, no. I couldn't find something else. Let me try another question paper. There's something that I want, of which it has to complete what I've taken you through in today's lesson. Okay. Let me try 2020, 2021. Let me try this question paper. So maybe I can find something over there. Okay. Another one there, I'll just call it 1.1.5. This is 2 to the exponent x times 3 to the exponent y is equals to 24 to the exponent 6, even though this is not actually what I wanted, but I'll just add something for myself there to say, let's say you are given 2 to the exponent x plus 1 multiplied by 4 to the exponent x over let's say 8 to the exponent x minus 4 times, let's say 2 to the exponent negative 2 x over there. Okay, so Cindy, so you are in a maths class. So as I've explained, in today's lesson, I won't be solving any of these problems, but I want to explain to you in terms of how do you interpret the given maths problems. Let me do this there. Number one, it's either you are given a linear equation or a, let's say, inequality. Two, in this one. It's either you're given a quadratic equation or inequality. Number three, it's either you are given an expression. Okay, so again, remember, Cindy, a mathematical problem is made of, number one, a sign. Number two, a number. Number three, a letter. Nothing is new to you there, Cindy. Do you know a sign? It's either plus, minus, divided by multiplication, square root is equals to, less than or whatever, greater than or whatever. A number, you know, you can have a negative 10, you can have 0, you can have positive whatever. Letter is a up to all of this. It makes a maths problem. So that is why, Cindy, so I'm not rushing to solving maths problems, because I want to introduce to you to what is a maths problem. So here comes a question, Cindy. So 1.1.1, is this a maths problem?
Yes, sir.
What type of a maths problem is that?
I think it's a quadratic equation.
What makes it to be a quadratic equation? Or why are you saying it's a quadratic equation?
I'm saying it's a quadratic equation because of the x exponent, which is to the power of 2.
Mm-hmm.
Also, sir, because it has an equal sign.
100%. So the other question that you ask yourself, is it in the standard form?
Yes.
Yes, it is in the standard form. Let me also write it down there. So for it to be in the standard form, it has to be a number to the exponent whatever plus a number x plus a constant, and then it has to be equated to 0. So if it's in the standard form, in this one, it simply means you can now factorize and find factors. Make sense? I'm happy there's in this one. So this one also, can you just explain to me in terms of what type of problem is, explain to me, is it a maths problem? Is it a maths problem? What type of maths problem is it? And then is it in the standard form? What does it mean? What is the next step? So explain to me in this one.
So it is a math problem. It's a quadratic equation because it has x with an exponent of 2,
Mhm.
and also it has an equal sign.
Is it in the standard form?
Yes, it is in a standard form.
So what does it mean if it's in the standard form?
It means that it has a value of a, b, and c, meaning that it follows the equation that says ax squared plus bx plus c.
100%. Which means, what is our possible next step? Because now it's in the standard form.
Repeat your question, sir.
Because it is now in the standard form, what is our possible next step if it's in the standard form?
We are going to factorize.
100%. But in this case, because examiner said correct to 2 decimal places, for that reason, it means you use a quadratic formula of negative b, whatever b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So you can add this to your notes to say, if a quadratic equation is in the standard form, it means you can factorize. But if they say correct to 2 decimal places, it means you cannot find the factors, but you will find a decimal as your final answer. You can therefore use a quadratic formula. Does it make sense in this one?
Yes, sir, it does.
Let's move to 1.1.3. So 1.1.3, is it a math problem? What type of math problem is that? And again, how do we follow the steps towards getting the final answer? Explain to me this, Cindy.
So for number 3, it is a maths problem, and it is quadratic inequality. Yeah,
But
and so
but why is it a quadratic inequality, Cindy? We tata then.
so aren't you gonna
Utshele
use the
ubani
formula?
ukuthi lento le i-quadratic utshele ubani.
No answer.
Okay, you are 100%. So I'm just going to explain something of which going forward, you and I in our lessons will actually be referring to that. So, in this one, let's say if you are given a problem similar to that, which has got some brackets. So remember, there's what we call bit mass. I call it bit mass, but it's well known as dot mass. This bit mass, that's when you see something as a base to the exponent something. So that means B, it stands for the brackets. So always when you're given something which has got brackets, just say you are not sure what type of a math problem it is until you remove the brackets to make it an equation, or to make it let's not even say to make it something. Let's say always we want to remove the brackets, and then after we can tell what type of the problem is. So can you see you have 1 minus x, you have x plus 2. How do we remove brackets? We know it's very easy. You say that times that, and then you say that times that, and then you say this times that, and then you say this times that. What is 1 times that? It's x. What is 1 times that? It's positive 2. What is that times that? It's negative x squared. What is that times that? It's negative 2x, and then we have less than 0. So can you see? You can therefore say 1 letter is to the power 2. Therefore, this is a quadratic problem. So is it a quadratic equation, or is it a quadratic inequality? inequality. Because of that inequality sign, it makes it a quadratic inequality. So that means you therefore need to work it out to write it in the standard form such that it follows that ax squared plus bx plus c, and most importantly, after the inequality sign on the right side, it has to be 0. If it was given as a number, maybe 9, you have to move it to the other side, work it out, write it in the standard form until on the right side you have 0. That's when we say it's in the standard form. If it's 8 on the right side, it is not in the standard form. So does it make sense?
Yes, sir.
100%. That means, Cindy, so when we are given this type of a problem, you tell me to say, at this stage, we are not able to tell if it's a linear or if it's a quadratic, but we are just aware that it's a math problem. So only after we remove the brackets, you will be 100% sure in terms of what type of a problem it is. So are you happy there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's move to 1.1.4. Square root of x plus 18 is equals to x minus 2. What is that, Cindy? What is that? Explain. Just explain exactly what you're supposed to explain to me. Explain.
So this is an equation. So the first thing that you need to do to see that it is an equation, you're supposed to first square both sides to remove the square root, so that you are going to be able to transpose x minus 2 to the other side, and then on your right hand side you're going to be left with 0, making your equation a quadratic equation.
Cindy, so I noticed I had a bit of a connection, but are you still there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I've been saying wait, and the reason to that is because I couldn't hear you when you were speaking. The first word that you said, what did you say? Can you try to explain again?
So what I said was, first of all, we see by an equal sign that it is an equation,
Okay.
and in order for us to prove that it is a quadratic equation, we're supposed to first square both sides, and then we're going to transpose x minus 2 to the other side, to your left hand side, leaving you with a 0 on your right hand side, and then it will give us a quadratic equation.
Okay, let's try something there. You tell me, Cindy, here's the problem. Square root of that plus that is equals to x minus 2. So this is what
Sir,
you're saying.
sir,
Mm-hmm.
I can't see your screen.
Can't see the screen. Let me try something. Can you see?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is what we're given. And what are you saying, Cindy? What are you saying there?
So I'm saying that you're going to remove your square root, so you're going to have x plus 18 on the left hand side, and then you're going to have x squared minus 4x plus 4.
Oh, Cindy, so when they came with
Sorry, sir.
Cindy,
Please repeat, sir.
no ngithi utyabile mos ulijonge.
Yes, sir.
Okay, no, that's good. I'm very much happy that you are able to notice what happens over there. So that means at this stage, you are able to tell what type of a problem is this, isn't it?
Sir.
100%. So now I'm going to remove all of that. So we're not going to be solving anything in today's lesson. Next week, but we just hammer all different types of problems, and we're just dealing with solve for x. Then we'll be knowing that we're done with what is it? Question 1. Okay, so the next problem, can you see 1.1.5? Talk to me, Sidiso. Talk to me. Kulu.
Sir, I'm not sure about this one, but I'm going to try. So, because of the equal sign, it is an equation. And also, what I know from what I've been taught from my school is that since you have 24 on your right hand side, it means that you're going to change it into having like the same base with your right hand side. So, meaning that we're going to write 24 as 2 to the power of 3 times by 3.
Okay, 100%. Okay, 100%. So that means, Cindy, so this is a math problem because it is made of sign, number, and letter. And again, it is not a linear, it is not a quadratic, it is not an expression, but it seems to be those type of exponential problems. So we can regard them as exponential problems because of the exponent is the letter and not the number. So that means we need to be aware of the laws of exponents to apply in this case. That's why we're talking about the basis being the same. So that means on our next lesson, actually, I should, after solving a few of math problems, take you through a lesson where I'll be doing laws of exponents. Do you be happy with?
Yes, sir.
Okay, quickly, as we wrap up our lesson, what can you say about 1.1.6?
1.1.6 is an expression. Reason being, it doesn't have an equal sign. Yes, sir.
So, in addition to what you said, Cindy, so you can say when we are given an expression, it means we simplify. So we write all of this in its simplest form. And in this case, it seems to be an exponential type of a problem where we need to use the laws of exponents to simplify. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Seeing this one, this should bring us to the end of our lesson for today. I'm not sure in terms of your feedback, Cindy Swan. Would you see I haven't lost you since from the beginning of this lesson up until now? We're all on the same page.
Yes, sir. I do understand, and I am able to tell the difference between the linear, the quadratic, and an expression.
Yes. So can you see, Cindy? So it's more like previously you used to just solve straight away. You just solve without having to analyze the type of a problem that you're dealing with. So that is why, Cindy, so at all times, most of my lessons, I actually drive the show because if it was someone else, they would have said, say, I want us to do this problem and whatever. So I was going to reject that because sometimes, Cindy, so someone says, can you teach me how to run, but they don't know how to walk. You see, so that is why I had to start at the starting point. And thanks very much for being patient with me on that because you might have been wondering to say, what are we talking about? Why are we doing, a linear equation, expression, whatever? Where is that in the question paper and everything? But can you see, everything was building up towards us solving exam type of problem. So just like you're saying, now I'm also confident based on your response that you fully understand the difference between a linear equation, inequality, quadratic equation, equality, and an expression, and you know how to approach those type of problems. So that means going forward, after we have done laws of exponents, from there, what we'll be doing is to solve for question number 1. And then from there, we can move to the next question. Possibly, we can maybe move to what is this in this? We can possibly move to a sequence and series or the function. It will just depend on what you find difficult. Otherwise, if possible, just so that I make sure that we cover everything within an hour, I can possibly write some notes, quote a lesson such that I present everything to you. Then in case if you've got a question, we pause it and then I explain, because in that way, I won't forget everything that you must be aware of. So in this case, I was doing everything live. You might find that I've actually forgotten important information because I'm just saying everything out of my head. But we'll just see how it will work out as we continue. So, Cindy, so this brings us to the end of our lesson for today. And thanks very much for joining. Please do make sure that maybe you also attend lessons by Mr. Sibanda during weekdays. I think he started a lesson now. After this lesson, if possible, you can just go in the group and join that lesson. I'm not sure if he has started it, but otherwise, are you happy there, Cindy? This was our very first lesson. I'm not sure. What's your feedback? Can you just tell me, Cindy? Do you think we'll continue until the end of the year?
Sorry, sir.
No, I was just asking in case if you're happy on your side, because this is our very first lesson. Are you happy? Do you think we'll continue until the end of the year? Cindy, are you still there?